I was sitting in the clinic waiting room when my phone rang. It was Angela, my only daughter. Her voice sounded strange, almost cold, when she said, "Mom, tomorrow we're going to Europe. I sold your vacation house and your car. We needed the money. Goodbye." She hung up immediately, without another word of explanation. For more than 50 years I had raised her, sacrificed for her, and then she discarded me as if I were nothing but trash. But I took a deep breath and smiled, because there was something my daughter did not know. My name is Mary. I am 69 years old, and until that moment I thought I knew my daughter well. I had been widowed for only 6 months. Robert, my husband, died of a heart attack while we were having breakfast together, as we had every morning for 44 years. That morning he had poured me a cup of coffee and handed me a slice of toast. As always, he kissed my forehead and said, "Good morning, my love." Those were his last words. Since then, Angela had been appearing more in my life, or at least that's what I thought. She came to see me a few times a week, helped with the funeral arrangements, and took me to the grocery store. She even suggested I get a full checkup. "Mom, now that you're alone, you need to take better care of your health," she said with a smile I once believed was full of love. But now I understand it was convenience. The vacation house had been our refuge for many years. Robert and I bought it when Angela was only 15, with all our effort and sacrifice. Every summer, the whole family would go there, making memories, celebrating birthdays and Christmas. Angela brought friends, and later she brought her husband, Richard. I cooked for everyone, cleaned, did the laundry. It was our family tradition. I never thought my daughter would see those memories only as money. And the car, the old Chevy Robert treated like a child, washed every Sunday, given regular oil changes, always parked in the Grammont, same spot under the big shade tree. Angela knew what that car meant to me. It was the last thing left of Robert. His scent still lingered on the seats. When she hung up, I was still sitting on that hard plastic chair, surrounded by other patients. For the first time in months, I did not cry. Something strange happened inside me. A calm I had not felt since Robert died, because I suddenly remembered something I had completely forgotten. 3 days before he died, Robert had given me an envelope. "Mary, put this in your dresser drawer. If anything happens to me, open it after a while, but only when you feel ready." I put it away without giving it much thought. After the funeral, amid all the grief and the formalities, I forgot about it, but it had been waiting for me at home. A nurse called me into an exam room. The doctor examined me and said my health was fine for my age. I just needed more rest and a better diet. I nodded and smiled, but my mind was elsewhere. I thought about that envelope, about Angela's cold voice, about how Richard must be behind all of this. Richard had never liked me. He always saw me as a burden. I left the clinic and walked slowly to the bus stop. I no longer had a car, according to Angela, but while I waited, I couldn't help smiling. There was something ironic about it. My daughter thought she had left me penniless, but she didn't know that Robert, my dear husband, had always planned ahead. The bus arrived and I sat by the window. I watched the city pass by the houses, the shops, people rushing here and there, each with their own tragedies and secrets. I had a secret too, and I was about to uncover it. When I got home, I went straight to our bedroom, opened the drawer, and there was the envelope exactly where I had put it. My hands trembled slightly as I picked it up. I could feel several documents inside. Robert had written my name in his careful handwriting on the front. I sat on the bed we had shared for so many years and took a deep breath. Outside, the sky was darkening, and the house filled with familiar shadows that no longer frightened me. I opened the envelope slowly, as if unwrapping a birthday present. What I found inside left me breathless. There were legal documents, title deeds, bank statements, and a handwritten letter from Robert. Tears sprang to my eyes when I saw his familiar script. "My dear Mary, if you are reading this, it means I am no longer with you. Forgive me for not telling you everything while I was alive, but I wanted to spare you worry. Over the years, I invested our savings in real estate and businesses. We do not just have the vacation house, we own 6 more properties, including the building where Angela and Richard are living. We also hold shares in 3 companies worth more than you can imagine. You are wealthy, my love. You always were wealthy, but now you have the legal papers to prove it." My hands shook as I turned each page. There were deeds for houses in different neighborhoods, an apartment downtown, a small seaside hotel, and indeed the 20-story building where my daughter lived. Robert had been the silent owner for 10 years, but he had held everything under a company name I had never heard. According to the papers, I was the sole heir to that company. There were also statements for accounts I had never known existed. The numbers seemed unreal. Robert had been a bus driver for 40 years, but apparently he was also a very shrewd investor. Every penny we saved, every sacrifice we made, he had quietly multiplied, and I had never known. In his letter, Robert explained that he had kept it secret because he did not want me to worry about money, nor did he want Angela to know the truth. "You know our daughter, Mary. If she knew we had money, she would change. I want her to love us for who we are, not for what we have." How ironic. My daughter abandoned me because she thought we had nothing, when in fact we had everything. That night I could not sleep. I walked through the house, touching the antiques and the things Angela always called outdated. I looked at the family photographs on the wall, especially the one where she was 5, sitting on Robert's lap and laughing. Where had that sweet child gone when she became so cold and calculating? The next morning the phone rang early. It was Angela again. Her voice sounded different, softer, but I had learned to be suspicious of that tone change. "Mom, how are you? I want to tell you we've transferred the money from the sale of the house and the car. We deposited your share into your account. It's not much, but it should get you through a few months while you find somewhere smaller." "My share?" I asked calmly. "Yes, Mom. Of course we didn't want to leave you with nothing. We gave you 30%, that's fair, right? We needed the money for an investment in Europe. Richard has an amazing business opportunity. 30% of my own assets. How generous." "I understand, dear. When are you leaving?" "This afternoon, Mom. Our bags are packed. We'll be gone at least 6 months, maybe longer if the business goes well. But don't worry. When we come back, we'll help you find a small apartment that suits your needs. My needs as if she knew what I needed." "All right, Angela. Have a safe trip." "Mom, I knew you'd understand. You've always been so giving. We love you very much." And she hung up. I sat there holding the phone, and for the first time in months, I laughed. I laughed in a way I hadn't since Robert died. The whole situation was so absurd it was almost comical. My daughter had stolen from me, kicked me out of my own home, treated me as an unbearable inconvenience, and all of it to fund a European adventure that would likely end in disaster. But what hurt most wasn't the money. It was how easily she removed me from her life. Years of my life devoted to her, filled with sacrifice and unconditional love, and she cast me aside with a 2-minute phone call. It hurt. I checked my bank account online. Yes, they had deposited an amount they thought generous, but to me it was a joke. They had sold the vacation house for far less than its value, probably because they needed cash quickly, and Robert's car had been sold off. That afternoon, from my kitchen window, I watched Angela and Richard load luggage into a taxi. He carried 2 large suitcases. She had an expensive travel bag. I saw them laughing, kissing, planning. They looked like 2 teenagers excited for an adventure. They never once looked up at my window or said goodbye. When the taxi pulled away, I sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea and Robert's papers spread across the table. I had to decide. I could call a lawyer, demand my property back, fight to get everything returned, but something told me there was a better, more instructive way. I called James, the attorney who had handled Robert's affairs. He had attended the funeral, offered his condolences, and told me not to hesitate to call if I needed anything. Now I needed him. "Mary, it's good to hear from you. How are you holding up?" "I'm all right, James, but I need to see you urgently. I found some of Robert's papers and I don't understand them." "Of course. You can come by my office tomorrow morning. I'll be there." That night, for the first time in months, I slept deeply. I dreamed of Robert. He was sitting in his favorite armchair reading the paper, as he did every morning. When he saw me, he smiled and said, "It's time, my love. It's time for you to stand up for yourself." I woke with a strange feeling, not exactly happiness, but not the long black cloud of grief that had weighed on me for months. It was determination. For the first time since Robert's death, I had a clear goal. I would take back what was mine, but not in the way Angela expected. The next morning I prepared more carefully than as usual. I put on the wine-colored dress Robert always said made me look elegant. I did my hair, put on a touch of lipstick, and when I looked in the mirror I saw a woman I had not recognized in a long time, a strong woman. James's office was downtown. It was an old but elegant building, marble floors and large windows. James greeted me with a warm smile, but when I showed him the papers, his face changed immediately. "Mary, this is far bigger than I imagined. Robert was a very clever man. Look, according to these documents, I am the owner of—" "I know, Mary, I checked. What I need to know is what you want to do legally." James explained that everything was in order and the paperwork was legitimate. I was the legal owner of all those properties. He also confirmed what I had suspected. The sale of the vacation house had been illegal because Angela had no right to sell it. "I can recover the house immediately, Mary, and I can also file suit against your daughter for fraud." "No, James, I don't want to sue. I want to do this differently. I want to keep it all secret for now. Can you help me?" James looked at me with curiosity but nodded. "Of course. You're my client. What do you need?" "I need you to quietly recover the vacation house, to take whatever legal steps are necessary to cancel that fraudulent sale. And I need you to help me assume actual control of all my properties, especially the building where my daughter lives." "I understand. It will take a few weeks, but it's entirely feasible." "Good. And James, I don't want anyone to know I'm behind this, at least for the moment." When I left James's office, I felt as if I had woken from a very long dream. I walked the downtown streets, watching people, buildings, the ordinary flow of life. But for me, everything had changed. I had a plan. The following weeks would be the strangest of my life. Outwardly, I was the poor widow abandoned by her daughter, but in secret I was a wealthy woman quietly reclaiming my fortune. James worked efficiently and called every few days with updates on the legal formalities. I decided to stay in my house for now. After all, it belonged to me, even if Angela probably expected I would move into a rented room. Each morning I got up, had breakfast at the same table where Robert and I had eaten for so many years, and then I walked around the neighborhood. Neighbors greeted me with that mixture of pity and curiosity reserved for newly widowed women. Elsa, an old neighbor, came by one afternoon while I was watering the plants in front of the house. "Mary dear, is it true Angela went to Europe and left you here alone?" "Yes, Elsa. She went with Richard. They have business plans over there." "So how will you manage, child? Everyone says Robert didn't leave much money." If only she knew, I thought. "Don't worry, Elsa. I'll be fine. If you need anything, I can bring over food or help with shopping. You are very kind. But I'm fine." Elsa looked at me with the expression I knew so well, the same look everyone had given me after the funeral, part sympathy, part relief that the tragedy hadn't befall them. "All right, dear. You know where to find me if you need anything." Those kinds of conversations repeated over and over. The butcher, the baker, the woman who runs the corner shop, everyone spoke to me in that tone. I listened, smiled, thanked them for their concern, but inside I took a small pleasure in the two-faced performance. It was as if I were living two lives. Wednesday morning, James called. "Mary, I have good news. I canceled the sale of the vacation house. The buyers didn't know the transaction was fraudulent, so they were refunded. The house is yours again." "Wonderful, James. What about the building where Angela lives?" "That's more complicated. Legally, your company has always been the owner, but we need some INEO. Administrative changes so you have direct control. It will take about 2 weeks." "Very good. Keep me updated." After I hung up, I sat in the kitchen with my coffee and thought about Angela. She had been in Europe for 3 weeks with no calls, no text messages, not even a postcard. The moment she had money in hand, I had disappeared from her life. But I knew that would soon change. I decided to visit the vacation house. I took the bus to the shore, the route Robert and I had taken hundreds of times. The house looked exactly as I remembered. Small, painted a creamy color, with a porch that faced the sea. The new owners had added a few potted plants, but otherwise nothing had changed. I sat on the sidewalk opposite and watched for an hour. I remembered summer afternoons when Angela was a child, playing in the sand and building sandcastles. Robert grilled fish while I prepared salads in the kitchen. Angela brought friends, then boyfriends, and later Richard. All those happy moments had been reduced to a commercial transaction. An old man came out of the house and, seeing me, approached curiously. "Are you all right, ma'am?" "Yes, thank you. I'm just remembering." "Did you know the previous owners?" "Yes, very well." "That's a shame what happened. They told us the elderly owner was very ill and had to sell quickly. We thought it was a good deal, but later found the sale wasn't legal, so we had to give the money back." "Did you know them personally?" "No. We worked through intermediaries. They told us the daughter handled things because her mother was ill. It's sad. If he only knew the whole truth, it would be sadder still," I thought. "I'm glad you didn't lose any money." Luckily, everything was sorted out, although now we'll have to find another place. We really liked it here. I walked away with a heavy heart. It wasn't just about the money. It was about how easily Angela had invented a lie about my illness. She had used a fictional vulnerability to justify what she did. To her, I was not a person with feelings but an obstacle to be removed. That night I called James again. "James, I need you to help me with one more thing. I want Robert's car back." "That's tougher, Mary. The car is titled in your daughter's name and she had a power of attorney to sell it. How could that be?" "It appears you signed a power of attorney a few months ago, after your husband died. Don't you remember?" That was when Angela had begun to make her move. I vaguely remembered signing a few papers she brought, saying they would make funeral and inheritance formalities easier. I had been in such pain that I signed without reading. How naive. I see, James. Is there any way to get it back? We can try, but it will be difficult. We'd have to prove you signed under a mistake or under coercion. Do it. I want everything they stole returned. The weeks that followed were strange. In the mornings, I was the poor widow everyone saw going to the market, chit-chatting with neighbors, keeping up appearances. But in the afternoons, I became a businesswoman, reading Robert's documents, speaking with James, planning my next moves. I learned things about finance I'd never thought I'd need to know. I discovered Robert was even more astute than I had imagined. Every investment had been calculated. The building where Angela lived wasn't only profitable from rent, it was in an area that was rapidly appreciating. I also discovered Richard, Angela's husband, was deeply in debt. He had borrowed money using the apartment as collateral, not knowing he wasn't the real owner. If the banks found out, he would be in serious trouble. One Friday afternoon, James called with important news. "Mary, we've completed the paperwork. You now have full control over all the properties. I also recovered Robert's car. The buyer happened to be a friend of mine, and when I explained the situation, he agreed to return it for a small compensation." "Wonderful, James. Now I need you to do one more thing. Send my daughter a letter." "What kind of letter?" "An eviction notice." There was a long silence on the line. "Mary, are you sure you want to do that? After all, she is your daughter." "James, she kicked me out of my own home with a 2-minute phone call. She sold my things without asking. She treated me like trash. Now she will learn that actions have consequences." "I understand. I just want to make sure you've thought this through." "I've thought it through, James. Every last detail." That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake imagining Angela's face when she opened the letter. First surprise, then disbelief, then panic. She would think it was a mistake, that someone was trying to scam her. But when she called to verify, she would learn everything was legal. The next morning, as if waiting for it, the phone rang at 8 a.m. It was Angela. Her voice was frantic. Mom, I need to talk to you right away." "Good morning, dear. How's Europe?" "Mom, I don't have time for that. I just received a very strange letter. It says I have to vacate my apartment within 30 days. There must be some mistake. Do you know anything about this?" "An eviction notice? How odd. From whom?" "From a company I've never heard of." "Let me check the letter. Robert Investments, LLC. Do you know this company?" Robert had used his own name for the company. How poetic. "No, dear, I've never heard of it." "Are you sure the letter is real?" "That's what I need to find out. Mom, I need your help. I don't know what to do anymore. Richard left me in Europe. He ran off with another woman, and now I come back to this. I don't understand what's happening." So that was that. Richard had abandoned her, perhaps when the money ran out or when he realized the legal troubles back. Home were worse than he thought. Poor Angela. She had sacrificed her family for a man who was no good. "I am so sorry, my daughter. Where are you now?" "I'm at the apartment, but I don't know how long I can stay." "Mom, can I come see you? I need someone to talk to. I don't have anyone." How ironic. Only now that the man she left me for had vanished, did she remember she had a mother. "Of course, honey. Come anytime. I'll be right there." I hung up and looked at myself in the mirror. I had to be perfect for this act. I put on my plainest gray dress, pulled my hair into a neat bun, and practiced the expression of a worried but resigned mother. When Angela arrived, she would see exactly what she expected. A poor widow, weak and abandoned by her own daughter. She arrived an hour later. When I opened the door, I was genuinely taken aback by how bad she looked. She was gaunt and hollow-eyed, her expensive clothes wrinkled and unkempt. Her eyes were red from crying. "Mom," she said. For a moment I thought she would hug me, but she froze as if she suddenly remembered how things had ended between us. "Come in, dear. Would you like some coffee?" "Yes, thank you, Mom." We sat at the kitchen table where I had read Robert's papers weeks before. Angela looked small in that chair, like a lost child, the same child who used to tell me about being bullied at school. "Mom, I'm sorry for the way I left. I know I treated you badly." "It's all right, dear." "No, it's not. I said terrible things to you." Her voice broke. "Now I have no one. Where is Richard?" "He ran off with a hotel waitress in Paris. She's 25. There was no business opportunity in Europe. It was all a lie. He wanted to escape his debts here and used the money from selling your house to fund his adventure." "All of his debts?" "Yes, Mom, a lot. Apparently he had been borrowing for years, using our apartment as collateral, and now I find out he wasn't even the owner." I knew the moment had come. "I don't know, sweetheart. Real estate matters are complicated. Now the banks are after me for his debts. They say that because we were married, I'm also responsible. And that eviction notice. Mom, I don't know what to do. I have no money, no job, no place to live." She began to cry real tears, genuine despair. For a moment, the mother in me softened. I wanted to hold her, comfort her, tell her everything would be okay. But then I remembered the coldness in her voice when she called from the clinic, the way she discarded me so easily, as if I were a burden. "Have you spoken to a lawyer about the letter?" "I don't have money for a lawyer, Mom. We spent everything in Europe. Richard took the rest with that woman." "So what will you do?" I thought, maybe I could stay with you for a while, until I find a job and rent a small room. That was exactly what I had been waiting for. After throwing me out of my own home, after selling my things, after treating me like trash, now she wanted me to save her. She wanted the poor mother she had created to pull her out of the mess she had made. "Of course, dear. This will always be your home." Angela looked at me, stunned, as if she couldn't believe it could be so easy. "Really, Mom? After everything?" "You are my daughter, Angela. That will never change." She stood up and hugged me. This time it was a real embrace, the desperate hug of someone drowning, clutching the last bit of flotation. I hugged her back, but it was no longer an embrace of unconditional love. Now there was calculation, strategy. "Thank you, Mom. I promise I'll find a job soon. I won't be a burden." "Don't worry for now. Rest, recover your health. Then we'll figure things out." That afternoon, Angela went back to the apartment to collect a few things. I sat in the kitchen, thinking how smoothly everything had gone. She had come exactly as I had planned, broken, desperate, with no options. Best of all, she suspected nothing. In her eyes, I was still the poor, pitiable mother. But that was only the first step in my plan. Letting her live with me would give me the perfect opportunity for the next phase. I would let her settle in, feel safe, believe she'd found refuge. Then, when she least expected it, I would show her the difference between chosen poverty and poverty as consequence. That evening I called James. "James, I need you to do one more thing." "Tell me, Mary." "I want you to investigate Richard's debts. I want to know exactly how much he owes and to whom, and what legal options exist to separate those debts from my daughter. That will take time, but it's doable." "Excellent. And James, absolute secrecy. No one must know I'm behind this." Of course, Mary. May I ask what your final plan is? My plan is simple, James. I will save my daughter, but first she must understand what it means to hit rock bottom. I hung up, poured myself a glass of the wine Robert had saved for special occasions. It had been a long time since I had a special occasion like this. The game had begun. For the first time in months, I held all the strong cards. The next day, Angela moved into my house. She came with 2 suitcases and 1 box, all that was left of her former life. I watched her unpack in her old room, the room where she had slept as a teenager. I could see the humiliation in every movement. From a luxury apartment, now she had to take refuge in her childhood bedroom. "Mom, I found this in the apartment," she said, handing me an envelope. "It was among Richard's things. Your name is on it." Another envelope from Robert. My heart raced, but I kept my composure. My name? How odd. "Yes, Mom, look." She handed me the envelope. Sure enough, my name was written in Robert's handwriting. But this envelope was different from the one I had found in the drawer earlier. This one was smaller, newer. Maybe Richard found it among Dad's things when he died and forgot to give it to you, Angela said. Maybe. Can I see it? I opened the envelope in front of her. Inside was a short letter and a small key. The letter read, "Mary, if you are reading this after I gave you the main envelope, it means our daughter is going through a hard time. This key opens a safety deposit box at the Main Street branch of a local bank, box number 42. There is something inside that may help you help her. Use it wisely. With undying love, Robert." Angela glanced over my shoulder. A safe deposit box? Dad had a safety deposit box? I didn't know. A lie. Your father never mentioned any of this. Do you think we should go see what's inside? I don't know, sweetheart. Maybe it's better to leave things be. But Mom, there could be something important in there, documents, or something valuable that could help us. Her voice was full of desperation. Angela was clinging to any hope to escape this situation, and I decided to let her cling a little longer before I revealed the whole truth. "All right," I said after a calculated pause. "We'll go tomorrow." That evening, Angela and I had dinner together for the first time in months. She cooked to show she was being helpful, but the food tasted of guilt and despair. She told me more about what had happened in Europe, and each story was worse than the last. "Richard lied to me about everything, Mom, not just the business, but the debts. I thought he owed a little. It turns out he owes more than $500,000. Worst of all, he used my name to borrow money without me knowing. How could he do that? He forged my signature. When we married, I gave him some documents to handle joint account transactions. I never thought he would use them like this. Do you have proof? You didn't know? I'm not sure. Everything is a mess. The banks say because I was his wife, I'm responsible for his debts. And the divorce? I don't even know where Richard is. He disappeared, phone off, emails unanswered, like he evaporated. Perfect. Richard had run off like the rat he truly was, leaving Angela to shoulder the consequences. In a way, he had done me a big favor. Now my daughter was experiencing exactly what I endured when she abandoned me, betrayal by someone she trusted completely. I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't know it would be this bad. I didn't know either, sweetheart. Angela thought. I thought Richard loved me. I thought we'd build a life together. She began to cry again. How could I have been so stupid? How did I not see who he really was? I wanted to say I'd seen the signs from the start, that I'd tried to warn her, that I never trusted him, but that would ruin the role of the sympathetic, fragile mother. Love sometimes makes us blind, dear. Don't blame yourself. But Mom, I didn't just ruin my life, I made yours miserable. I treated you badly. I took the house, the car, everything of yours, and gave it to a man who left me the first chance he got. It's all right, Angela. No, it's not. Now both of us are in dire straits because of me. You lost everything Dad left you, and I lost my husband and my future. We're two poor women trying to survive. If she only knew, I thought. If she knew that right now I had far more money than she could imagine, that I owned the building she used to live in, and that I could solve all her problems with a single phone call. But the time was not yet right. The next day, we went to the bank. Angela was nervous and full of hope. I continued my act as the financially dim widow. The bank clerk led us to the vault area, verified our identities, and opened safety deposit box 42. Inside the box were pieces of jewelry, lots of jewelry, rings, necklaces, bracelets, earrings. Some pieces I recognized as family heirlooms from Robert's side. The rest were completely unfamiliar to me. There was also a letter listing the origin of each piece and their estimated values. Angela was speechless. Mom, this must be worth a fortune. You think so? Look at this emerald and this pearl necklace. Mom, Dad really hid a treasure here. According to Robert's letter, the jewelry was worth about $1 million. A considerable sum, but still nothing compared to the rest of the fortune I held. It was like finding spare change under the couch when you already have $1 million in the bank. What shall we do with this, Mom? I don't know, dear. These are family keepsakes. But Mom, we could sell some pieces. With this money, you could reclaim the vacation house, and I could pay off some of Richard's debts. There it was again. Even after discovering something valuable, Angela's first instinct was to use it to fix the problems Richard had created. She still hadn't learned. Are you sure you want to use your father's inheritance to pay Richard's debts? What choice do I have, Mom? If I don't pay, the banks will seize everything. And legally, I have nothing. Everything is in Richard's name. Think carefully. Once you sell these pieces, you'll never get them back. I know. But what else can I do? With all these pending lawsuits, I can't get a job. No employer will hire someone with so many legal troubles. We took the jewelry home. Angela spread it across the kitchen table and examined each item, calculating which to sell and which to keep. It was painful to watch her reduce her father's memories to line items on a sheet of paper. Mom, I think this will at least cover a few urgent debts. Not all of them, but it's a start. And then? Then I'll look for a job and start over. Maybe rent a small, cheap room. You don't need to go anywhere. Stay here as long as you need. No, Mom. I've already taken advantage of your kindness too much. Besides, I need money too. I can't support you forever. It was strange to see the entirely mistaken image Angela had of my finances. In her eyes, I was a struggling widow counting every penny, when in reality I had enough to buy the whole building where we found the safety deposit box. That afternoon, James called. Mary, I've got a full report on Richard's debts. It's worse than I thought. How bad? He owes more than $1 million to several banks and has additional loans from private creditors. Worse, he used forged documents with your daughter's signature to obtain some of those loans. Does that mean Angela will be held responsible? Legally, it's complicated. If we can prove she didn't know, we could get her off some of the liabilities. But it will be a long and expensive process. How expensive? With a top lawyer specializing in these cases, at least $250,000. And there's no guarantee of success. What if she just pays it off? If she had that amount, it would be the fastest solution. But I doubt she has anywhere near that. James, I want you to prepare all the necessary documents to clear my daughter of these debts. But don't tell her anything yet. Will you be covering the cost, Mary? I will do whatever it takes to protect my daughter. But this must be handled in a very specific way." When I hung up, Angela sat in the living room staring sadly at the jewelry. She looked lost, like a child who'd broken a favorite toy and didn't know how to fix it. "What are you thinking about?" I asked. "I'm thinking about Dad. If he could see me now, he'd be so disappointed. I ruined everything. Your father loved you very much, Angela. He would understand." "No, Mom," he taught me. "Responsibility. To cherish family, not to be selfish. I did the opposite. I abandoned you for a deceitful man. I sold our family's memories for money. I destroyed everything Dad built." For the first time since she returned, I heard genuine remorse in her voice. Not just regret over consequences, but a clear recognition that she'd acted immorally. "Everyone makes mistakes, sweetheart. What matters is what you learn from them." "But how do I learn, Mom? How do I make up for what I did?" That was the question I had been waiting for. Finally, Angela was ready to face the truth about her actions and their consequences. But it was not yet time to play my final card. I needed her to hit rock bottom. The following days were crucial to my plan. Angela decided to sell most of the jewelry, keeping only the engagement ring Robert had given me and a small necklace that had belonged to her grandmother. I watched her prepare to go to jewelers, compare offers, and negotiate with buyers. It was heartbreaking to see decades of family history turned into a series of commercial transactions. But it was necessary for her to feel the true weight of the decisions she had made. "Mom, I sold them," she said one afternoon as she counted the bills on the kitchen table. "Less than I expected, but enough to handle some urgent debts. Are you sure you want to do that? I have no choice. If I don't pay now, they'll seize everything. Even this house could be at risk if they prove I have a legal connection to the property." The irony was biting. Angela feared losing a house that legally belonged to me because of a man who had abandoned her, using money from jewelry that belonged to the very man who had built the fortune that could have saved her. "So which debts will you pay first?" I spoke with a free financial counselor at the bank. They told me to prioritize secured debts because those are the ones that can trigger immediate seizures. Angela had matured a great deal in those few short weeks. The girl who once sold everything of mine without asking was now carefully weighing each financial decision. Suffering had taught her responsibility, even as it left her fragile. That night, as she organized debt papers on the table, James called. "Mary, I have important news. We located Richard." "Where is he?" "In Paris, as your daughter suspected. But here's the interesting part. He's trying to obtain French residency through a sham marriage with that young woman." "A sham marriage?" "Yes. She needs documents, and he needs a way to stay in Europe without being deported. More importantly, we found evidence that he deliberately forged your daughter's documents with the intention of fleeing the country. So Angela can be cleared of the debts? With this evidence, we can prove fraud and coercion. Your daughter will not have to pay for the debts Richard incurred behind her back." "Perfect. I have a lawful way to wipe Angela's entire debt without her knowing I have the money to do it." "James, start the legal process right away. Should I tell your daughter?" "I don't want to say anything until it's finished. I don't want to give her false hope." "Understood. It will take about 3 weeks, maybe a month." "Good." After I hung up, Angela looked at me curiously. "Who was that, Mom?" "Someone checking on a neighbor down the block. Wrong number." Lying had become easy. With each passing day, I grew more comfortable with this double life. On one side, the poor widow my daughter had abandoned. On the other, the wealthy woman quietly rescuing and teaching her own child. 2 weeks later, I watched Angela struggle with choices she had never faced before: how to afford food, how to negotiate with creditors, how to find a job when her credit was ruined. It was a harsh lesson, but a necessary one. "Mom, I had 3 interviews today," she said one evening. Exhausted, feet swollen, her face hollow. 2 places turned me down because of the lawsuits. The 3rd offered me a night janitor position. Will you take it? I don't have a choice. The pay is low, but it's better than nothing. I'll work nights and keep looking during the day. My daughter, who had lived comfortably for more than 40 years, was about to clean offices at night. My heart ached, but I felt a fierce pride. Finally, she was facing reality and not waiting for someone else to fix things. "Are you sure you can handle that kind of physical work?" I asked. "I'll learn. I can't be a burden to you anymore. You already do too much letting me stay here for free." "This is your home, Angela." "No, Mom. This is your home. I'm here because of your kindness, and I won't take advantage of it forever." One night, while Angela was working her first shift, Elsa came to visit. She sat with me in the kitchen, drinking tea, looking at the family photos on the wall. "Mary, I want to ask you something." "What is it?" I said. "Did you know Angela would come back in these circumstances?" "What do you mean?" I asked. "When she left, she seemed so confident, so arrogant. She talked about a glamorous life in Europe, about Richard's success. Now she's back, broken, working as a cleaner, living with you." "Life has many turns, Elsa." "Yes, but I think there's more to it." I had been watching Angela for days, and I could see she was different, not only sad, but humble, as if she'd learned something important. Elsa was perceptive. "What do you think she's learned?" she asked. "I think she's learned to value the things she took for granted, like having a mother who loves her unconditionally. Mary, may I say something? When Angela left and treated you badly, many of us thought you would never forgive her. Yet here you are, caring for her, giving her a home when she has nowhere else to go. She's my daughter, Elsa." "Yes, but not every mother would do what you're doing, especially after being treated like that. If Elsa knew the whole truth, that I could have solved Angela's problems long ago, but chose to let her suffer a little longer so she would learn the lesson fully, she might have felt differently." "Do you think I did the right thing?" I asked. "I think you did what a good mother would do. But I also think Angela needs to understand exactly what she lost when she left you." "What do you mean?" "She needs to value you, not just as the mother who rescues her in trouble, but as the strong woman who built a stable life for 45 years. She needs to respect you, not merely rely on you." Elsa had hit the nail on the head. That was exactly my aim. I did not want Angela to come back out of despair. I wanted her to return with genuine respect and mature love. "Do you think that will happen?" Elsa asked. "I think it's already happening. I've seen it these past days, Mary. The way she speaks to you now is completely different. She's no longer the child who gave orders or treated you as a burden. She's become an adult who genuinely appreciates having a mother like you." That evening, when Angela came home from work, I saw her enter tired but with a new dignity. She had earned that small amount of money by her own labor, and it meant something to her. "How was your first day?" I asked. "Tough, but not as bad as I thought. The women there helped me a lot. There's a woman named Maria who showed me quicker ways to clean." "Maria?" "Yes, she's 60 and has been cleaning offices for 20 years. She said she started after her husband left, leaving her with 3 small children. It's not a dream job, but it gave her independence and dignity. She sounds wise. She is. She said something that made me think a lot." "What did she say?" she said. There are two kinds of people who end up doing this work: those who never had the chance, and those who had every chance but squandered it. Then she asked which group I belonged to. I said I used to have every chance: a loving family, a home, an inheritance, and I lost it all chasing a worthless man. What did she say to that? She smiled and said, "At least you know why you're here. That already puts you ahead of most people." Angela poured a glass of water and sat beside me. "Mom, I want you to know something. These days have been the hardest of my life, but also the most important." "Why?" I asked. "Because I finally understand what really matters. It's not money, not a luxury apartment, not impressing people. It's having people who truly love you, who are there when everything falls apart. Mom, I know you have every right to hate me for what I did. I left you when you needed me, took everything Dad left, treated you like trash. Now I come back asking for forgiveness and shelter. I forgave you long ago, but you have to forgive yourself. I won't do that for you. You must prove you've changed and learned from your mistakes." The next morning, James called. "Mary, I have very good news. The legal process is nearly complete. We can free your daughter from all of Richard's debts." The time had come. After weeks of watching Angela suffer, work, and reflect, it was time to show her she had never been alone, that someone had been quietly watching over and protecting her. "James, arrange a meeting. It's time my daughter knows the truth." He scheduled it for Friday morning at his office. I only told Angela I'd made an appointment with a lawyer who might help her legally, not the details. She agreed to come, worried about the cost. "Mom, I don't have money for a lawyer. I can barely afford food." "Don't worry now. Let's hear what he has to say." We arrived at James's office on time. Angela wore her nicest outfit, now loose on her thinner frame. She was nervous, fidgeting with her hands, bracing for more bad news. James greeted us with his usual professional smile. "Mary, Angela, thank you for coming." "Thank you for seeing us," Angela replied, "but I should warn you my finances are a mess. I can't pay high fees." "That's exactly what we need to talk about," James said, glancing at me. "But first you need to look through these documents." James handed Angela a thick file. She opened it and read, her expression shifting from bewilderment to astonishment. "I don't understand. These papers say Richard forged my signature, that there's proof of fraud, and that I'm not responsible for the debts. Is that true?" "We've been investigating for weeks and have enough evidence to show you were a victim," James said. "But who paid for this investigation?" "I don't have money." Angela looked at me. The moment had arrived. "Angela, there's something I need to tell you." "What is it, Mom?" she asked. I took a deep breath. After weeks of acting, I would lay all my cards on the table. "Your father left me more than you know, much more." "What do you mean?" she asked. "James, give her the other file." James handed over a second packet. Inside were property deeds, bank statements, investment certificates, the entire fortune Robert had quietly built. Angela read in silence for several minutes. Her face passed through a spectrum of emotions: confusion, disbelief, shock, and finally understanding. "Mom, this says you own the building where I used to live?" "Yes, and you have other properties, bank accounts, and investments." "Yes, it means the vacation house you sold was mine after all, and that sale was fraudulent. I've already reclaimed it." Angela stared at the papers, trying to process it all. "How long have you known this?" "Since the day you called me from the Kleis clinic." "You knew when I came back from Europe crying for help?" "Yes." "You knew you could have solved everything while you watched me cry every night?" "Yes." A tense silence followed. Angela closed the files and looked me straight in the eye. "Why, Mom? Why did you let me suffer when you could have saved me?" That was the question I had waited weeks to hear. "Because you needed to learn something that you would never learn if I had helped you right away." "What is that?" she asked. "You needed to learn the value of what you lost, the value of family, of respect, of responsibility. When you left me, you didn't just take money, you took dignity, love, trust." Angela began to cry, but this time it was not the self-pitying tears of the previous weeks. These were tears of genuine comprehension. "You left me when I needed you most. You treated me like garbage." "Yes. And you still saved me." "Yes. But not in the way you expected. I didn't save you with money so you could keep making the same mistakes. I saved you by letting you hit rock bottom so you could learn to save yourself." James spoke up gently. "Angela, your mother has paid all the legal fees to free you from Richard's debts. She has also reclaimed every property that was fraudulently sold. You are completely free. And the cleaning job you just took, you can quit it if you want," I added. "But I hope you won't." "Why?" she asked. "Because that job teaches you what you never had to learn when everything was easy. It teaches you the value of your own effort, the dignity of honest work, and the importance of every dollar you earn." Angela wiped her eyes and looked at me with a gaze I hadn't seen in a long time. It wasn't the look of a child needing her mother anymore, but of a grown woman looking at another woman with respect. "Will you forgive me, Mom?" "I forgave you long ago, my daughter. The question is whether you can forgive yourself." "I don't know. I have done unforgivable things." "Everyone makes mistakes, Angela. The important thing is what we do after we recognize them." James left us alone in the office for a few minutes. Angela and I sat in silence, taking in everything that had just happened. "Mom, I want you to know one thing. Even if you didn't have this money, even if you really were the poor widow I thought you were, I would still have learned the same lesson." "What lesson is that?" I asked. "That nothing is more precious than having someone who loves you unconditionally. Over these weeks, the only thing that kept me alive was the certainty that I had a home with you, that no matter how much I ruined my life, you would still be my mother. That will never change, Angela." "I know, but I also know I can never take that love for granted again. I have to earn it every day, with respect, with gratitude, with actions, not just with words." We left James's office with a completely different relationship. We were no longer just mother and daughter bound by blood and habit. We were two grown women who had chosen to stay together after passing the hardest test. The following weeks were about rebuilding, but not in the way Angela had expected. Even though she now knew I had the means to fix everything, she decided to keep the night cleaning job. "Mom, I need to finish what I started," she said one afternoon as she was getting ready for work. "I can't just go back to a comfortable life as if nothing happened." "Are you sure? You don't have to punish yourself forever." "This isn't punishment. It's a way to remind myself who I used to be and who I want to become." I watched her put on that uniform, something unthinkable a few months ago, when she lived in a fancy apartment with Richard. But there was a change in her posture and in the way she moved. She was no longer the broken woman who had stood at my door in tears. She had found dignity in honest work. That afternoon, Elsa came by again, as she had been doing since Angela returned. "Mary, I must confess something," she said as she poured a second cup of tea. "At first I thought you were too harsh with Angela." "And now?" I asked. "Now I think you are the wisest mother I have ever known. Look at your daughter, look at her." Indeed, Angela sitting in the living room studying was nothing like the girl who had left for Europe. She had an inner calm, a confidence rooted in her own achievements rather than in material things. "You know, yesterday I saw Angela at the market buying vegetables for a family she helps through her job," Elsa continued. "She didn't tell you?" When I asked, she said she used her own money and not any charity funds. She said there are some things you can't measure by budgets. That night, Angela and I ate dinner on the porch, our new ritual. It was a time to talk about the day, plan for the future, and simply enjoy each other's company. "Mom, I got a strange letter today," she said while cutting her salad. "From whom?" "From Richard." I tensed. "Where did he write from?" "From a prison in France. He was sentenced to 2 years for marriage fraud. In the letter, he says he regrets everything and asks for forgiveness." "How do you feel about that?" I asked. "Honestly, I feel nothing, not anger, not sadness, not revenge. It's like that part of my life happened decades ago, not months." "Will you answer him?" "No, not because I hate him, but because there is nothing left to say. The Angela who married him no longer exists." I was struck by the maturity in her voice. The woman sitting in front of me had developed an inner strength born from hitting rock bottom and standing back up. "Do you know what this whole experience taught me, Mom?" she asked. "What?" I said. "That true love isn't telling someone what they want to hear. True love is teaching them what they need to learn, even if it hurts. Richard told me what I wanted to hear. He made me feel special, deserving of effortless luxury. You taught me that real wealth comes from work, from respect, and from genuine relationships." That night, after Angela went to her room to study, I sat alone on the porch looking at the stars and thinking of Robert. I had promised him I would care for our daughter, and at last I felt I had kept that promise in the right way. I hadn't cared for her by giving money to solve every problem. I cared for her by teaching her to care for herself. I didn't save her by erasing hardships. I saved her by letting her overcome them. The next day was Sunday, and we planned to visit the vacation house together for the first time since reclaiming it. Angela had been reluctant at first, saying she needed time to process. "Are you ready?" I asked as we got into the car. "I think so," she said. The drive was quiet but pleasant. When we arrived, Angela sat in the car for a moment, looking at the house where we had spent so many family holidays. "It looks exactly the same," she whispered. "Some things don't change, but others do. I'm not the person who sold this house anymore." We went inside together. The house was clean and tidy, just as Robert and I had kept it for years. Angela walked through each room, touching the furniture and studying the family photos on the walls. "Mom, I want to apologize." "You already apologized." "No, I want to apologize specifically for this house. Not just for selling it, but for turning our family memories into a commercial transaction. You're forgiven. This house represents 40 years of family summers, birthdays, Christmases. Dad built this porch with his own hands. You planted this garden. I learned to swim on that beach. And I turned all of it into cash for a worthless man." She sat in the chair where Robert used to read on Sunday mornings. "Do you know what hurts me the most?" she asked. "What is it?" I answered. "That when I sold it, I felt nothing. It was just another asset. Now that I'm back, I can feel Dad in every corner. I hear his laugh, smell his morning coffee, see his reading glasses on the table. He's still here, Angela. He never left." "I know. And I also know he would be proud of how you handled everything. We spent the whole day at the house cooking, cleaning, and fixing small things. It was like a ritual of reconnection, not just with the place, but with the values it represented. When the sun started to set, we sat on the porch Robert had built and watched the sea. "Mom, I have a proposal," she said. "What is it?" I want to turn this house into a temporary shelter for women escaping domestic violence, a place where they can stay while they rebuild their lives. It was a perfect idea. Robert would have loved the house to help other families. That's wonderful, dear. We can use some of the foundation funds to maintain it, and I can oversee the program through my work. Are you sure, Mom? Do you want to turn our family haven into something like that? The best havens are those that are shared. Your father used to say a house only becomes a home when it opens its doors to people who need love. He was right. We returned home with a new project and a completely transformed relationship. We were no longer mother and daughter bound by duty or necessity. We were two women who had consciously chosen to build a life together based on love, respect, and a common purpose. That night, before falling asleep, I whispered to Robert, "We did it, my love. Our daughter finally understands what really matters." And for the first time since he died, I felt an answer. I always knew you two could do it. You are stronger than you think. Justice didn't come as revenge, but as education. Not as punishment, but as transformation. And in the end, you both gained something far more precious than money. An authentic relationship built on solid foundations that no crisis can destroy. There are lessons life cannot teach with words alone, only through experience. I used to think protecting a child meant shielding them, doing everything for them. It turns out the strongest kind of love is letting them fall, letting them fail, and then watching them learn to stand on their own feet. Angela lost everything: material things, trust, and the illusion of love, and found one essential thing: herself. And I, from an angry, bewildered mother, learned to step back, observe, and trust my daughter's inner strength. Perhaps the most beautiful thing in a family is not being right or wrong, but the ability to grow together, to forgive, and to begin again. Have you ever had to let someone you love stumble so they could learn to walk? Or have you risen from an ordeal and discovered something important about yourself? Please share your story or thoughts in the comments. I would love to read and learn from you. And if you believe, as I do, that everyday stories hold extraordinary lessons, stay with me. We have many more stories to tell, to hear, and to learn from together about love, family, and the healing power of the human heart.